Hey there everyone, this is Ill Factor from beatacademy.com. Now, trying to figure out the right chord progression for your music can be a little bit troublesome, especially if you have no background in music theory. And so today in this video, I want to highlight a specific plugin that can be a real helpful tool for you in figuring out what chords to use, even helping you decide what melodies and bass lines to use in your projects. We're specifically going to be taking a look at Captain Chords, Captain Deep, Captain Melody, and maybe Captain Crunch. I don't know, we'll see. Well, just kidding about that last one. But seriously, let's see how these plugins can help you be a little bit more creative in your chord progression and just music composition process in general. So let's dive right in. So let's start with taking a look at Captain Chords. I've got Captain Chords loaded here on a MIDI channel on the Ableton Live. And the first thing to take note of is that when you hit play in your session, it remotely triggers any of the Captain Chord plugins. So it's in perfect sync with your project. Let's take a look at the left-hand corner here. This is where you determine which key signature you're going to be working in. And you can always change the key signature throughout your progression. So it doesn't matter, it's never set in stone. So for now, let's stay on A. And then here's where you can determine what scale you're going to be choosing. Is it going to be minor, major, major pentatonic, so on. And if you're not familiar with the differences between these scales, this is a great helpful tool to become familiar with the scales and understand the differences between each one. You can choose any one of these and see the difference in the chord structures and what they sound like. So it's a great helpful tool to become familiar and take some baby steps in your music theory understanding. So let's stay at A minor. And then immediately you have a grid here in which you can insert or quantize your chord progression. So you can have this chord progression play for the whole bar. And you can also nudge the chord progression so that it fits the timing you want for your progression. So let's go and have the timing set for the chord to play for a whole measure. And now what we can do is start inserting chords to create a chord progression. You notice on the top tab here, it says verse. What I like about this is that it creates these little tabs in which you can focus on writing a verse chord progression, then on to a pre-chorus, and then ultimately working around a chorus chord progression. And being able to actually lay it out in this manner can be very helpful to understand where to go to next once you have a certain chord progression pattern laid out. So we'll stay in the verse section, and what we're going to do is we're going to go from A minor, and let's just choose a chord to go to. Now, you might be thinking, well, how do I know which is the right chord progression to go to? Well, you can try by just messing around and triggering some of the chords they give you up here. So you have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. These are the 7 notes within the scale of A minor. So we started with an A minor, the first, or some might call it the root, and see what would the progression sound like if we went from 1 to the 5th, or the 5. So we're going from A minor, and you can experiment and see what each chord sounds like, so you get a better idea as to which chord you want to head to. So let's stay with, let's go to the 6. So now we're going from A minor, the first, and then we go to the 6, which is the F major. And so let's go ahead and add another chord progression there. So we left off here, right? And then let's let the third chord be the 5th. Now this is all just, you can go in, experiment, and see what works. You can also change the different types of inversions or add specific notes. So let's see what that sounds like. And then I can add this again. And go to the 6. So now we have this chord progression. But let's say, hey, that's cool, experimenting is fun, but what if you want if you don't really have an understanding or even know what I'm talking about when I mean 1, 4, 5, and 6. What's cool about Captain Chords is they also give you helpful guides as to use progressions. You can see here, it's listing the progression that we're using. So according to what we just mapped out on this grid, we're using a 1, 6, the 5th with the 7th in there, and then the 5th with the 6th in there. That's a progression. But you can click this, and they give you a whole library of different progressions and things that work really well. So For instance, you can click here, and that means this is a 1, that goes to the 3, that goes to the 7, and that goes back to the 4th. And they give you the listing here of the actual chords that it's doing. So you can use any of these progressions and load them into your grid. And then you can hit the undo button if you wanted to go back to the one we created earlier. Now you can also, once again, change the timing of the chords. So here, let's have the chords just play half the length. And maybe introduce the 3rd chord a little bit earlier. But then we would always have to maybe have, we're trying to complete the whole phrase here. So I have that last chord play up to bar 5. So it makes it really easy to just kind of figure out the different types of chords. Then next, you have the strum feature, which is really cool. You can go to this chord that we're using here, and by just increasing the strum value, it's actually not playing the notes at the same time, but yet it creates an order of which note will be played first, and then it'll play the second one. So giving that nice little strum effect. This is really noticeable when you actually change the presetted sound. So right now it's set to piano. You can click this, and let's try an electric piano. So that gives that nice, cool, nice subtle approach to the chords as opposed to just playing them straight forward. Maybe a little back on the strum. You can also add swing to that. And what's cool is that you can have all these different sounds to choose from. All the keys, plucks, pads. So you can see what everything sounds like with all the different onboard sound presets. These are all sounds coming from within Captain Chords itself. And you can add some reverb to that. You can also filter out the sound. So really helpful, once again. Now let's say, you know what, that's cool. But what if I like playing my MIDI keyboard and I'm trying to figure out what chord it is. I don't know what chord it is that I'm playing, but it sounds cool. You can hit this MIDI keyboard feature. And what it'll allow you to do is it'll allow you to actually just play the keyboard. And so I'm playing some random notes here, and it actually is telling you what chord it is that you're playing and how it fits in the key that you're in. So this would be the second chord or the second note of the scale with an added 6 in there. So that's really cool too, to actually get a better understanding of what chords that you naturally go to when you approach your instrument, such as a MIDI keyboard. And if you're anything like me, I've kind of got a bad habit of going usually to the same chords over and over again. And so having something like this is cool because I can do that and then go in here and manipulate the voicing of that and just change stuff around. So it's really, really helpful in that case. Now we've got some verse progression here, and what I can do is copy that over and move it over to our pre-chorus. And now I can go ahead and change this up. And the good thing is I can simply just drag and drop this new chord progression into my DAW and use any other plugins that I have or any other MIDI tracks. I can go and edit the MIDI as I would normally in my production workflow. So it's really helpful to have all that there. Now here are all the chords that I've played in Captain Chords, but now they're being triggered with my VST plugin. And the same exact timing that I had in Captain Chords. So if I wanted to move things around, I can now nudge and edit them within Ableton Live and move them around as I so please. So now that we have our chords in place with Captain Chords, let's head over to Captain Melody to see how we can create a melody around that chord progression. So let's open up Captain Melody, and you'll notice that you need to connect all the Captain plugins so that they integrate and talk to one another. Based on the chord structures that we have for our verse, and that's where we're at here with Captain Chords, it's already created a melody kind of blueprint to work with. So let's go ahead and lower the chords a little bit so the melody comes a little. Now granted, it might sound a little weird, but that's what you can basically use some of these as starting points. So that's the tension. So let's go ahead and change this to the chord notes only, meaning let's just use the notes that are at each chord progression to form a melody. And you can go ahead and change the different type of rhythm. So let's try elephant, see what that does. But I think what's really going to be helpful with integrating Captain Melody with chords is it's more of giving you a general ballpark idea of some notes that you might want to choose when writing or creating your melodies. The same thing goes for Captain Deep. Captain Deep can kind of help you illustrate which notes to choose more or less for the bass lines. Now, granted, these are all just suggestions and things that can kind of help you hit the ground running. You can always just clip these clips here and drag them into your DAW. And then once those melody lines are in there, you can then go ahead and change the specific notes to where you want them to. So these are really helpful tools to kind of help get you hitting the ground running and coming up with new creative chord progressions and inversions and just a different new outlook as to how you create the chords that you want to be using in your projects. Well, I hope this video has been encouraging, inspiring, and helpful for you. And as my gift to you for watching this video, I'd love to send you a sample pack that I've put together from some of my projects over the past year. The sample pack includes construction kits and loops and one-shot hits and transition effects that you can use in any DAW. You simply just drag and drop them and you're good to go. They're also 100% royalty free. So that means you can use them in your projects and start making music and share it with the rest of the world. It's yours absolutely free. Just click the link below in the description box and download your sample pack today. Or you can visit www.beatacademy.com/pack. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.